Warm greetings, everyone. On behalf of Monday Munching and Musing with Women for Water, we welcome you to another session. And in fact, today is a special session because the series is today 100 sessions old. This session is conducted with the support of Water Resources Council of the Women's Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry and in collaboration with W4W Foundation. This is Dr Bhargav, your host for the entire series, and I'm from the House of Wiki WRC and W4W Foundation, currently hosting the position of National President at the Wiki WRC and also the founding member of the W4W Foundation. We are glad to start this conversation, namely Monday Munching and Musing with Women for Water, which we co-equally refer as Blue Lips. The conversation is aimed to share the worries and the wisdom by the woman, for the woman, of the woman in the water sector. In here, we hope to learn about the water endeavours of the woman in a regular, disciplined manner like a masterclass. This conversation is part of the research on women in water focusing on leadership, and the method used is called autoethnography, which in simple words translates into one's biography written by someone else. The open-ended structured questions in this conversation are tabled as an informal interaction for the conversation to flow like water. On this 100th session, we are really glad to have Dr. Veena Srinivasan as our host and guest. I'm saying it host because eventually she will actually lead the session for us. And thank you so much, Veena, for agreeing to be with us and also being part of the 100th session. It is such a nice celebration for all of us. And before I invite you for the interaction, I would like to just put on record a quick overview of your experience, although you do not need any introduction to anybody who are listening to us as Women in Water. But still, Dr. Veena Srinivasan is leading the Well Labs mission to transform scientific research into real-world impact by designing solutions that simultaneously creates livelihoods and conserve the environment. In 2022, she was listed as one of the top cited scientists in the world. Veena has won several awards for her work, including the 2015 Jim Dog Award for the Best Paper in Journal Hydrology and Earth Sciences from the European Geophysical Union, and in 2012, a Water Resources Research Editor's Choice Award from the American Geophysical Union. She's also a recipient of the Teresa Heinz Environmental Scholars Award, and Veena chairs the Strategic and Advisory Group for the Integrated Monitoring Initiative for UN SDG 6, and she was also the Prince Claus Chair at Utrecht University. She joined the board of International Water Management Institute since January 2024. Thank you so much, Veena, and we are going to keep aside your so extensive body of scholarship, and here I am more keen to learn about Veena, the girl, the woman who many of us have been looking up to and getting a lot of inspiration. So what's behind this huge body of scholarship, and how do you manage all those things will happen? If you are ready, give me a go. We are live and we are on record. And just to let you know that eventually we will also write about your thoughts and ideas. Are you set? Very simple questions.
Absolutely. Thanks for inviting me, and it's a privilege to be here on the 100th episode. So thank you, Mansi.
Thanks. We are super excited actually because you made our day on the 100th session. I would like to take you to those days or years or months, whether it was school, college, dissertation, essay, fieldwork, I don't know, but when did you really fall in love with the subject called water?
I would say, let me first go beyond water to broader environment and sustainability.
Sure.
So I think I was always interested in environment and sustainability. So when I was studying in my undergraduate, which my degree was in engineering physics, I realized fairly quickly that I was not one of those people who wanted to be doing, very theoretical, engineering, lab physics type of work. And I really wanted to be in the impact space. And that happened right in college, where I initially dabbled with different, I worked on air pollution for a while. I worked on electricity for a while. My undergraduate thesis was on rural electrification. So I was on the energy sector. And then I continued with energy for the first few years of my career. And when I came back after my master's, I started working on natural gas. And what I realized very quickly, within a year or two of doing that work was it was very dominated. I mean, at that time, in late 1990s, natural gas was the path, people were already talking about climate change. And natural gas was going to be the path to decarbonization at that time, right? And so I thought this is an interesting, but very quickly I realized that it's very dominated by fossil fuel industry type of people, and it wasn't my personality. I mean, I was not fitting culturally into that workplace. And I realized that my calling was to work on more public problem solving, public oriented type of work. And I was not getting a chance to, the personality and the company that I was working for, it was very much what I would call, Wall Street type, it was a very, very private sector and a very aggressive private sector type environment. And it just did not suit me personality wise. So I realized that I wanted to move more into the social sector. And I initially moved to the social sector working on forestry. And then I moved to the US. I started working with Peter Glick. I don't know if you're familiar with
Yes,
Pacific Institute and
yes.
Peter Glick, one of the stalwarts. And Peter was the one that really brought me into the water sector, is the
Mhm.
thing I would say. I started working on California's water issues and so on. And then I realized, okay, this is an area which suits my personality, which I have the background and skills to bring to, and sort of that is where my journey, and that was in 2000 that
Hmm.
that I started. So it's 26 years now.
Yes, that's good to know, and also that it came from such a legendary name in the sector where we look at so much of his scholarship around. And since then, we have been looking up to you actually how you carry out your work and like that. And because you have been for such a long time, how do you find this space of doing water, studying water? It's you are a classic example of transdisciplinary scholar in that sense, because you are not only producing science, but you are also so, if I may use the word, also stubborn to see that it gets percolated into the ground. What kind of things you feel as a woman, and I'm going to start taking the conversation more towards the women matters. What kind of activities does Veena really enjoy as a woman in this space? And what are the activities or things that are really challenging, not only for Veena, but because you have also now mastered it probably over the years, you still find remains challenging for women? So
So
there are
you're
two.
saying women in water specifically, right?
Yes.
um so so I would say that I like I mean, I like field work, and I really, really like working with data. And so I really enjoy the process of kind of asking really hard questions and chasing hypotheses and looking at the data and seeing whether it actually, pans out or not. And it sounds like this is obvious, but if you come from a hydrology background, uh, the world is dominated by modelers and very few people that really spend time looking at data and developing hypotheses. So for the field of hydrology, data and data analytics is not kind of an obvious thing. But I really like the data part, data visualization, really trying to find, what's kind of the hidden patterns in nature type of thing. So that's exciting, I would say, as a water professional, not specific to women. Of course, I mean, as a human being, I enjoy lots of things. I enjoy art. And I like to bring that. I mean, I'm generally like to bring those aesthetics
Hmm.
into the water work as well. If you've seen a lot of Well Labs work, you see a lot of it is
Yes.
very visual in its language. So
Yes.
I do think that that comes from my private enjoyment. I'm not saying I'm not a great artist or anything, but I enjoy it. I enjoy, I have a lot of, I have a friend who, takes me birding. I certainly like the outdoors. And so you can see that and also the years I spent at A-Train, all of that
Mm.
together certainly brings my mindset of looking at water beyond engineering, but looking at like the ecological basis of water. And that's
Mm.
definitely something that I would say comes from my interest in the environment more broadly. So
Mm.
I would say, there are lots of things I enjoy which come from my private interests, but you can see them reflected in my professional
Yes.
interests. What has been challenging, I would say, and also that I don't like very much. I think that especially on the natural science side of water, there are still very few women. And so you're
Mm.
still, especially in senior leadership, you're very often the only person in the room
Yes.
who's a woman. And there is still, I mean, it's gotten better over time as I've gotten more gray hair, but there is
Yes.
still a need to earn your place in the room. It feels like there's a need to kind of, you know, prove and justify why you deserve a seat at the table.
Mm.
Just because a lot of the people in the room have not worked with other women. They've not kind of
Mm.
seen, they don't have that sensibility of kind of inclusion and so on. And so I think that's very hard earlier in my career, and as I've gotten older, it's gotten a little easier.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
I'm saying this because other women must be earlier in their career and struggling. That's why I'm saying it.
yeah. So it takes a while, and I can so much relate with my own life for almost 20 years. And also, it makes a difference the way you are actually physically looking. And that is what I have faced a lot in my life, to be honest, being a short heighted, very very skinny woman, and then getting into a room where you have these big people with, even physically size big, but even affiliation and other things, and talking a lot of things which are probably women can engage, but then she is not engaged. Many times I have faced it, but yes, white hair helps or gray hair helps after certain time. So it's just that we have to be there in that space and keep doing things, and probably the time arrives when it arrives, for that matter. That brings me to a question about work-life balance, which is kind of maybe seen as a Western concept, but it, of course, women are inherently having the nature to balance a lot of things. So multitasking comes as a natural thing, but
Definitely.
that also brings an extra stress on us, and I use the word superwoman syndrome. And it starts from our early career, that we want to do best in profession and best at family, and we want to carry our passion. We heard your passion, and there are very few of us, and I put myself also in that category, who has managed to converge the passion, profession, and personal life, and and have a very good mocktail or cocktail, whatever you may call it. Is there any mantra to do it, or how do you decode naturally? And how did Veena really get into that superwoman syndrome and finally decoded it? And how is it with Veena in this matter?
No, firstly, I would say to women, I would say that there's obviously no one formula because every
Yes,
woman's opportunities and challenges are different, right?
yes,
There are people, somebody might have an autistic child, somebody might have a very sick parent, and so it's definitely the stresses and also opportunities that are put in each
yes,
person's lot is very different.
yes,
So, firstly, I would say don't compare yourself to other people.
mm-hmm.
Don't say, Veena had this and that, or Mansi had this and that. But basically, recognize that everybody's dealt with a set of cards and it's different. And so, some people's lives are harder and some people's lives are easier.
Mm-hmm.
So, in my case, I had a unique set of cards, and some of them were positives and some of them were negative. So, I'll tell you some of
Absolutely.
the hard things. So, for example, um, when we moved to the US, right? We moved to the US because my husband got a job in the US.
Mm-hmm.
This is now 20 in the year 2000. And I had an extremely high paying job. I mean, I was talking about the oil and gas company, the natural gas company I was working, and it it was an extremely high paying job. I wasn't happy in it, but it was a very high paying job. But when my husband decided that, he's got a really good offer, we decided we would leave. I took a 99% pay cut, at that time.
Yes.
And I have taken a very significant pay cut multiple times in my life and gone from being, it's like the snakes and ladders, right? You climb, climb, climb,
Yes.
climb, climb. And then
And
I've
then
had a
suddenly,
snake and come all the way down to square one. And that has not happened once or twice in my life. It's happened, at least 2.5 times in my career, I would say, that I've taken pay cuts and taken significant, like 90% pay cut. And so the hard part of it was I was the trailing spouse, quote unquote, right? That means my husband had the job and then I followed him. But what we had agreed is that he would pick a location where I could get a PhD. And
okay.
luckily that worked out. Now, and he agreed to be flexible. He said, if you're not picking the country, you can pick the city. And so that worked out. And then I got into Stanford, and that was great because
Yeah.
one isn't complaining. Not everybody might have had either that
Yes.
exact challenge or that exact opportunity.
Yes.
I'm grateful that on the one hand I took the big pay cut, on the other hand I got this opportunity. But it wasn't, at that time I wasn't on the path for it, but life handed me that. There were two, three other times when the same thing happened. One, when I graduated. Again, I graduated out of Stanford, but by the time we had a kid and my son was in school, and then there was your job market becomes very shrunk because literally, you're like, okay, my kid is in school, I don't want to displace him. But then you're literally only getting the 5 jobs which are there. And like I said, that was another time I took a 90% pay cut. And I went back to Pacific Institute, but at a very, very low salary. I went back almost as an RA. So I went back at a position that a person might have had straight out of an undergraduate degree. And it was extremely hard for me to swallow such a big slide back in life, right? I had a PhD at postdoc. I'd been teaching a course at Stanford, went back essentially to a salary which was minimum wage. But I had to do it because I didn't want to rock the boat with my kid, right? And then the second time happened when we moved back to India, and then again, in-laws were very sick the second time, and so we decided to move to Bangalore. So again, I didn't have the luxury of picking location, which means you take whatever job you get. So that thing of not being, and this is, I think, a unique thing that women face a little more than men. I'm not saying
Yes.
men don't face it. I'm just saying on average, more women, maybe 3 times as many women face this than men, roughly, which is that you're the trailing spouse, which means you just take whichever job you get in the location that your spouse relocates to. In the second case, my husband also didn't have a job. I mean, we came back for in-laws and parents. So in a sense, it was dictated by elder care in the second time. But each time, I think that I said, okay, this is the cards I have. What is the most I can do with this set of cards? And I did. The only thing I would say is that the one good thing I had is because my husband was earning more than me, I could afford to trade off a little bit in salary in return for more challenge and learning opportunities. So that was one trade-off that I was able to make, which maybe not all women are able to make. So like I would encourage women to look at their unique set of trade-offs and say, what can I have? And then push the envelope the most you possibly can, given the set of cards that you've been dealt with. So that's the only thing I would say. It was a very long answer to a very
No,
simple
that's fine.
question.
No, but that's fine. And that is the reason we are asking here, because sometimes we see that the meager presence and participation of women is often not because of the lack of education, but because of the set of cards, as you rightly mentioned. We see more professional women drop out only after marriage, and after the kid, and then comeback of a woman is often a challenge, and especially we know now there are a lot of wonderful centers which are also working on counseling of women to come back as professional, but still the organizations or institutional setup is still not there to create that enabling environment, that for first thing that there should not be a comeback situation, and if there is, how smooth it can be for the, we are still not ready as a society for that. And that's why I was asking this question, and that brings me to the next round of question. But before that, maybe it's a good idea that we have some guests today along with you, and all of them have been actually part of our conversation before. Please feel free to put your question in the chat box or unmute and put your video camera on if you like to engage with Veena, or if you have some question in that particular set of questions which I am asking. So I move to the next round of question, and it's about leadership, women leadership. We are still dawned by manuals, and I had just a social media post recently from Niti Aayog and Ministry of Jal Shakti and Groundwater, where they had some big meeting, and it was all about men, and there were few women or girls standing at the background in the photo shoot also, and I'm assuming they were basically the facilitators of the event, which usually happens. And we all know that 1 in 5 is a global standard of women presence in the water profession. It's more about profession in general, but if we don't have many, we also end up having a situation of having even lesser in leadership. And India fares even worse than 1 in 5 in the water sector. I mean, I had a rough calculation, it is less than 1 in 10. That's our stand as of today. What do you think is the reason? Because we have also found some reason from literature review and study in this research, but I would still like to gather more reasons. Why are we missing in the foreground, whereas we are still substantial in number in the background of water sector? I mean, when I started just to give you an example, when I started my career, I knew 3 names. Not specifically water, but as you also started with larger spectrum of environment, me too. Vandana Shiva, Medha Patkar, Sunita Narayan, full stop. After 4-5 years, I got to know Dr. Indira Khurana, and then full stop for nearly 20 years. Then came Veena, then came Harini in my life, and to look up to people. Why are we so short of names or work? When I know now with Wiki Water Resource Council, and I have interacted with over 100 women, including youth, I see there are so many of them doing such an impactful work, but why are they? There is a visibility problem or the leadership problem. What's your take on this?
I mean, I think it's many, many factors. I don't think there's 1 or 2 factors.
Of course.
And there are some which are kind of structural societal factors. We still live in a society where there are more expectations placed on women than men, both in the home front and so on. Like I said, it varies from house to house, but if you look on average, it's still expected. Women still carry a greater share of the caregiving, for example. Women are more likely to be trailing spouses. Women are more likely, like I said in my own case also, if you're not happy at work, a lot of men would be like, I hate my job, I'm leaving, and they might just go and move to another city. Women, and then generally the family uproots and follows the father. Very rarely does the woman say, I hate my job, I'm being bullied, or so on, and then she moves, and then the family moves with her, So there are many reasons why structurally women stay in jobs where they are less valued and they have fewer opportunities for advancement, because they compromise saying, look, we look at the totality of our lives. We look at, our friendships, our children, our parents. We calculate many more things in optimizing our life than often men are more likely to have fewer things in that basket that they optimize for. And usually salary and professional advancement are a big part of that. So that
Yes.
comes from a structural sort of societal factor. I think that as women fall back in their profession, where they skipped because they had two kids or one kid, and then they took a few years behind, some of that is that we start telling ourselves the story that we're less capable, also, and that we reinforce the thing that society is telling us. And that's an
Yes.
internal sort of mindset problem also. So I think it's a combination of and then some of it is, you know, we don't we're already we're scared of what people would say, or like what would the husband say,
Mm.
what would the in-laws say, that you put yourself in a smaller box than you need to. Maybe you don't
Mm.
need to give up all those things, and you
Mm.
don't necessarily realize that you don't need to give up all those things. So that's the internal mindset part of it, right? That you start telling your story, I can't ask for more than this, I can't do more than this, I can't travel to that one opportunity, I can't go to that one conference, and we keep saying I can't, but sometimes you can, and yeah, your in-laws maybe disapprove a little bit that day, and then you shrug your shoulders, and you don't have to fight, but you can kind of be firm and say, this is what I want. So I think it's a combination of what we do to ourselves and what society does to us. um,
Mm.
but I think that there are ways for us as women to help each other overcome it. One is to give to create more spaces and opportunities for women. So very, very simple things that each of us can do, which is that cite more women
Mm.
when you're citing your publication. So be very careful and make sure that
Definitely.
you're not perpetuating a bias, right? Or when
Mm.
you're organizing a panel, make sure that it's more gender balanced than it needs to, even if you want to bring a younger person in. Or one thing that I've done is, in the past, is that I've had, if a woman comes and says, I don't have this opportunity because, I need to, I can't take this job, or I can't relocate. So, this thing sometimes strengthen women's negotiating positions. Basically say, okay, I know you're negotiating for this other job, you're really, really good. I'll give you a job which is maybe 20% lower than your worth, but at least you can use that to say, hey, I have a backup. So
Mm.
make women less desperate. I mean, so there are many small things you can do to help other women.
Mm. That
So
is a very important point you made, and that is all we talk about creating more enabling environment for them, especially to not push them, or nobody is pushing, but at least they don't push themselves into that vulnerable zone, and keep
exactly.
keep uh, keep themselves demotivated. And you need those things, and actually my next round of questions, when they arrive, there will be also some tools how we can do that. But I want to just take
Mansi,
this
one
chance.
second, I
Go
need to
ahead, go
charge.
ahead.
Just 1 second.
Okay, go ahead. And maybe it's a good time when she's charging, we can actually invite some of you to speak. And Ruchi, do you have anything to add here, because you recently had a conversation with us? Go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. Let Veena ma'am come back. I had a question for her.
Please pose your
Uh, uh,
question. Yes.
okay. So I wanted to ask her, since she, in a way, shifted from her science background to now the kind of thing. Especially, I was intrigued by this name, the wells. I mean, it sounds so, what to say. And now when I get to see there are so many wells which are in such a condition that you really want to, whether we should try to get them revived, or even the place where I am, there are many ponds which are in a very dilapidated kind of a situation. So sometimes you just think that, oh, how can I go about it? What can I do about it? So that activism sort, water is such a field that makes you feel that something you want to do. So I wanted to ask Veena ma'am, how did she like that switch from science to what she was telling in the beginning? I really found it very interesting. So I would
I
like to know a
wouldn't
little bit
say that
more.
we've put, I wouldn't say we've moved from science. I would say, if anything, I have deepened my engagement in science. I
Mm-hmm.
feel, I feel personally that a lot of academia is not producing science that is useful at all. And it's really got a lot of it has just gotten to be sort of a paper counting game, which has nothing to do with actual science. So I would argue that we are more science than, the average scientist. I mean, and I'm not joking. We're very, very seriously data driven. We do a lot of work on IoT and sensors. We do a lot of serious hypothesis testing. We do a lot of work on AI, ML, and pattern recognition. So it's very, I would still say we're very, very science heavy. So what I would say the shift that we made was really to say that I don't want to spend the last 15 years of my career producing papers and winning awards and that sort of thing, but not moving a needle in society. So I would say I moved the needle only on the translation side. And I wouldn't say I'm less of a scientist today than I was before. I mean, I'm not in an academic position, but I would say we do pretty serious science. The part I would say about how to engage, I would say this is a problem we have with the way we think about academia being very, very separated and in an ivory tower. So throughout my academic career, even before, we were very closely working with civil society organizations and CSOs and activist groups and so on. So I would say the mission should be don't do it on your own. Look and research who is in your neighborhood that's doing this kind of work, and then bring all of your science and data and tools and so on to them so that they become more effective. So you don't have to do it alone. None of us have to do this alone. There are lots of people that are trying to do it. What we can each do is bring our strengths to that process.
Nice.
So if I could just add a bit more. Yeah. So, ma'am, what I would like to put your things is like you are looking more at the social side of the science, if I could put it like that. Because usually we have this way of looking at these two in binaries, as if the science and the social science. But I think the kind of work that you are doing, that in a way, clubs the two. And
Yeah,
that
that
in a
is
way
true. I was always
enables
an
all of us.
interdisciplinary scholar. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
I will actually transcend into more as a transdisciplinary scholar, which is actually not so much recognized in India still. But when I look at people like you, I find a bit more comforting, because water sector requires that interdisciplinarity, or I will say transdisciplinarity, because we have more data crisis than water crisis, so we need science. We have more policy crisis than water crisis, so we need people who can talk to not only policy and politics but also to people. So we need those bridging people, where I actually put you in my classification of practitioners. I think that's extremely important, but I want to bring you back to my conversation on leadership here. And my second question in that string is, what are the leadership qualities a Veena usually will look at and qualify someone as leader? And everyone has their own set of attributes. And I'm asking this question also keeping the Wiki Water Resource Council in the background, because when we started this council and the membership is going over 100 now, we did recognize that when we talk about women in water, often the vulnerability card is often played, that women are, which is true. By statistics, women face the brunt of water crisis more. But it also undermines the contribution women professionals have been making over time. That's the background of why we do this conversation, and also Wiki Water Resource Council, where we have, not strategically, but we have really excluded the women who are from the rural and poor community. Somehow they got excluded, but we have, that's also, you can say, delineating the research or the council itself. We have now good number of professional women. However, I still would like to find out, because leadership is not a gendered concept. It's a genderless or gender-free concept. There are certain traits or skill sets which people have inherent in themselves as leader. one very common thing which is considered, which is intangible, is the charisma or the aura someone carries. But there are certain skill sets and traits which one can nurture, either for self or as established leader, we can nurture for the younger people. What are those things according to Veena?
So I would maybe disagree that they are born leaders. I think if
Okay.
I'm a strongly a growth mindset person.
Okay.
And I don't know if all of you have watched Carol Dweck's famous TED talk on the growth mindset,
Yes.
which basically says that anything can be learned, long and short of it.
Hmm.
So I think that leadership is a learnable skill. And
Okay.
very few of us are born leaders. I don't think there is such a thing, or if there is, it's irrelevant. I think every one of us has the potential to be a leader. And it's really, and so one thing we do at Well Labs, at least, we invest a lot in coaching.
Hmm.
It's certainly something that I have done when I took over and decided I wanted to do this. Is I invested a lot, and I still work with an executive coach. Um, because you don't know how to fix any of these things. So most of the time, when people fail, whether it's men or women, it's because I mean none of us know. How would I know how to run an organization, or what are all the HR things, or what needs to be done? I may have certain values, I may have certain aspirations, I may
Yes.
want to have people who are all hardworking and motivated and have a high trust environment, but I don't have the skill set to do all of those things. But working with someone who'll coach me and say, okay, these are the next 5 things you need to do. You're missing these things in systems. You haven't set up systems for this, which is why it's not happening. You don't have. So I think that leadership is completely learnable and teachable. And as long as we recognize that, every one of us can be that. So, yeah.
So
Now
some
I
basic
think
things.
you said, what are the traits? Sorry.
Yes. Yes. So what are the basic traits that which Veena gets? Veena will say that okay, this person to you is a good leader.
I would say 2 or 3 things. One is
Yes.
be a deep listener. If
Hmm.
you listen to what people are saying, not that I always do it, uh, but it is a certainly, the better you are able to listen very carefully, the better you are able to kind of find spaces where you can manage to move people, and you are able to find compromises. You're able to kind of make sure that you find those win-wins. So that's one. um, I would say part of deep to listening deeply is empathy. So starting with kind of understanding that most human beings in the world just want to get by, they want to be effective, they want to have a good life, they want to earn, they want to feel proud of themselves, that sort of thing. Most human beings have aspirations, and some of it is if you're able to find that sweet spot for helping other people find their own path. It not, by the way, not every one of those paths will be with me, right? But if
Of
I'm
course.
able to help people find their path, whatever it may be, then that is then people are going to kind of realize that you're not competing with them, but you're kind of helping them along. And I think that's, I mean, there is generally a saying that leadership is it's earned, and it's not a position somebody gives you.
Yes.
You can be a leader even being kind of a clerk or a receptionist or anything else. Leadership is
Absolutely.
what you assume for yourself. So it's a mind, a state of mind rather than anything else. So I would say that's the second, which is empathy. And the third one is you have to work hard, and you can't phone it in. So you've got to
Yes.
work hard and develop the skills and do all of that. And that's the third. And that is the piece where like I said, some women may not be in the position at the time in life where they just can do it because they have a kid, or the kid is sick, or the parents are sick, or whatever else. And that's where I would say be easy on yourself. And as we have a lot of time in life to do it over a lifetime. So I would not, as long as you don't think of yourself as I am not a leader or I am a failure, and you're saying,
Yes.
okay, this is the set of things I can do now. Eventually, I want to get there, but in 5 years, my kids will be in college, or whatever else it is, and I will get there. So you're setting kind of the setting stone, the stones, towards success in life. Eventually, you will get there. And so I think
Yes.
it's a matter of playing that long game without giving up early on and realizing I can't do it now, but I can in 5 years.
Yeah. So holding that confidence in yourself self is also important, as long as you are also compassionate to yourself and others. Very important for that matter. We ask this question importantly because we need to see if we, in the longer run, if more women are there, which also makes a ripple effect to have more women in the sector. That is a kind of a simple mathematics about it, so that the younger generation does not feel that it is not possible to do it. That's important for us to understand. Simar, you had your digital hand raised. Would you like to now go before I move to my next round of question? Maybe go to the next section actually. Simar, would you like to engage
Yeah,
here?
actually, that's all covered actually. Please go
Okay.
ahead. I'm
Okay. Thank
really
you.
enjoying this conversation.
Thank
Veena
you.
is my hero. She's been my hero from the beginning. I met her first in Delhi some 10 years back at the Changing Water Cycle program by the Center of Hydrology UK and Ministry of Earth Sciences. And she was, one of the few people whose team was also looking at the social aspects of this work.
Hmm.
So it was I'm glad that with Well Labs it's gone much deeper. A lot of citizen engagement has happened, and recently they did a full day dedicated to wastewater related findings to share it with the community, and they got so many stakeholders from the Bangalore, the activists and educators also. So it was very nice. Thank you, Veena, for sharing all these. This was nice because we are discovering you in a different way, because we
Yes,
always
that's
talk
the whole
about
idea.
Thanks, Simar.
yeah.
That's the whole
So
idea. We don't talk water here. We talk women in water here. And we want to
yeah.
basically encourage more women to join this sector. I saw Mamta, you also unmuted yourself. Do you have anything to ask before I move to the actually last section of my questions? Mamta? Okay, I don't see any response from her. That brings me to the last round of question, and it is about networks, platforms, associations, councils, and it is dedicated to Women's Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industries Water Resource Council. You are not a member of it, and this is also a time that I invite you to join us as advisor. You have received an email to join us as an advisor, and I would like to know from you your experiences of, whether these councils or association, it has different names, platforms, depending on you find your own space where you have like-minded people or, similar science work and all. If you are member of some council or association, do enlighten us. And would you think what is there to give and get in such kind of, and how, whether it benefited you or not, or does it really does not make a sense, whatever is your experience. We ask this question because, just to give a brief introduction of Wiki Water Resource Council, it is based on sisterhood. We have more than 100 women right now, with around 20% are young emerging scholars. And we have not managed to do big things, but we are trying to do small things at a time, but nearly 4 years old. And I have had the privilege to listen to almost all of them, like I am listening to you today, to be honest. And when we started building this mass, I barely knew 4 or 5 women. And I already feel a huge social, scientific capital by my side when I know these people, not as a water expert, but also as a human being. So that's my achievement, I will say personally. But also had a chance to work with some of them, write with some of them. What's your take about these kind of networks? Will these networks help women to really shape their career or climb the leadership or whatever? Do you have such
No,
experiences?
I think it's a great idea. I think it's a great idea. I don't know if I've been part of uh, a lot of, I mean, I've been part of Earth Sciences Women's Network, and I usually, if there's a conference and they have a women's luncheon, I'll definitely be part of that.
Mm.
The only thing I would suggest to people is to make sure that whatever network and skills and knowledge you're getting from being with a group of women, which is fantastic, should translate to what happens outside the women's group. Because otherwise, what
Yes.
happens is you can also have a danger where you have a sisterhood and it's very comforting, but
Mm.
you don't translate it into gains outside that network.
Yes.
Right. So the men then have their own men's network and they exclude all
Yes.
of us, and they are in much more powerful positions
Powerful.
than we are.
Yes.
So we have our little sisterhood. We're all complaining to each other how you're left out of everything. But you don't want it to end there. So
Yes.
I think that it's very important to make sure that you're using it to actually get much better. So you're getting
Mm.
better skills. You're constantly using it to get better in terms of skills, in terms of opportunities, in terms of platforms for speaking, so on and so forth. But so you don't want women to only be invited to other women only events. You want to make sure
Absolutely.
that you're polling this group so that you're increasing that number on key panel discussions from one to two, women, that sort of thing.
Yes. Mm.
So it's important for it to translate into that. But otherwise, just what a great idea.
Hmm. So I just want to update here all of you also, because today is also 100th session, that we all managed to find a position to present Wiki Water Resource Council at the World Water Week, and supported by CV in 2023, to be honest. And it was so motivating to bring the whole group there, and 11 of us spoke on that world global platform. We also had last year talking about water anxiety at the World Water Week, bringing the group women from here. So I so much agree with you that it has to transcend beyond. It is not a kitty club, and it has to go beyond that kitty club. And in fact, the activities and the achievements, little achievements we have had so far, we also translated into scientific article with Vishal. So no other better person than Vishal endorsing this whole movement, and talking about gender, mainstreaming. And because he is kind of, I will say, one of the masters to look at when we talk about water and gender. Yeah, I mean, for me, I look up to him for so many years, like I do with you and Harini. So it is important for us to look at in that sense. And I would like to ask you a question related to it. And how do you think then, when we are now 4 years of existence with more than 100 women, what will be your suggestions, other than, of course, making some noise, which we have not managed? We have to make noise. I see so many manuals, and Simar is here. She will agree. Sometimes we also talk. We get very upset and all. What kind of strategy do you think that Wiki Water Resource Council can make to have a deeper impact, not only to increase the network, but also to mainstream the gender concern, as we also wrote this article with Vishal? What should be our strategy?
Yeah,
Some ideas.
I mean, I haven't given it thought, so I'm
Yes.
probably not really giving you an optimal strategy here. Um, I think, yeah, increasing visibility, writing articles, all of that makes sense. I wonder, there's an idea I've wanted for a very long time. I've never managed to do anything with it. But when I was at Stanford, Stanford used to run this thing called the Leopold Fellowship, where what
Yes.
they would do is they would bring people from young researchers, men and women. It wasn't just for women, but it was for young environmental scholars, and it was meant for early career environmental scholars. And they would bring them to this 2 week retreat,
Hmm.
and they would train them. They would bring, it was a funded, so they would train them with bringing media people to, telling them how to give a sound bite, teaching them how to write an op-ed. And they would bring sort of the best in the sector to train these people on leadership, on communication, on how to present yourself, and so forth. And I was not, I mean, I was still a student, but what they had done is the faculty who had run the Leopold Fellowship sort of did a mini version of that for ourselves, right? And they taught us how to write an op-ed and how to present yourself, how to speak to a camera, all of that stuff. And I think how to build self-confidence, but all of that stuff. So I think that might be an interesting thing to do, which is to say that if you're able to bring senior people, uh, it could journalists, somebody like a Bahar that, somebody, all kinds of people. It could be
Yes.
senior environmentalists, it could be ex-IAS officers or chief secretaries, I mean, something like that, to a group of women, emerging women leaders, and say, can you tell them some of the secrets so that they are actually building skills? How should they make decisions? How should they pick opportunities? How should they present themselves? How should they, that sort of thing.
Okay.
Maybe that's something that could work. I'm just giving, one random
Of
idea.
course. Yes, of course. And maybe I will actually throw it back to you saying that why don't you lead it and we will be your army to organize that kind of event. Why not? And just again, a wild thought about it. But that is how ideas, germinate. When we sit together and we have these ideas, we have to also work around it to let it germinate. Mamta, I see you have a message in the chat box and I could not hear you. Maybe you may like to try once more, and because that will also bring to the last question I will have, which is very simple question for Veena. Do you want to engage now and just try if your mic is working, Mamta?
Yeah.
Yes, we hear
Am I
you.
audible?
Yes,
Am
you
I
are.
audible?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
audible. Go ahead.
Good evening to all the young ladies, and the wonderful session. Not only is kind of a hot discussion, it is also a lot of informations on science and technology. I just wanted to just inform that this year science and technology is dedicated to the women in science, which is
Yes.
celebrated in 28th Feb. So it's not we always celebrate when we are celebrating, we are recognizing women, but in every aspects from starting from our day-to-day life to the office hour to the all the social and scientific sectors, women are contributing sincerely. So how Veena ma'am can give a enlightening us what is the lacuna is there, that the work of a women is not properly cited in the society. Already Mansi has already enlightened many times. So what is the lacuna? Whether it is lacuna from us or it is a lacuna from societies. Sometimes we should also see whether our effort is less or is the direction, what direction we follow, that is wrong. What is the lacuna? Because many work is not recognized at all. So, and it is many times they suffer because they drag their work is wrongly cited by others. So what is the lacuna? Whether it is our fault or because we are celebrating a lot.
Yeah, we hear you. And
Yeah.
I just to give a background, Veena, Dr. Mamta Mahapatra is a very well cited scientist, by the way. And she is also representing as a state president of Odisha. So just to give you a background. Over to you. Yeah.
No, I have a lot of sympathy because there are, structural issues where women are not getting the. I mean, this is well documented in studies also, right? Where women basically do excellent work, but they are less cited in than their male counterparts and so on. We can't change all of patriarchy,
Yeah.
in one very simple way. It's very difficult to do. So I do want to sympathize. What we can do is at least cite each other's work better. And if
Be
we are all
strategic.
conscious that we are, women are at least supporting each other's work, at least that's a starting point.
Yes.
Because half of PhD students must be women in a lot of these departments, even if they don't rise. And so if you do that at every stage, saying, am I being fair to all of my women colleagues? Am I overcompensating and citing for them? At least that's a starting point. Yeah.
Yeah, I so much agree with you, and it can be strategic also, the way you want to put it like this, and so it is not even biased. That brings me to the last question, and it is actually not question, but we want to make a bite out of it. So it has to be really short, and it is in two parts. One, why we need more water professionals, and it's not gendered question. And second question is, so there are two bites we are looking for. Second question is, what are the simple behavioral change you and I should bring in the work environment that woman feels more, welcomed or encouraged? Simple behavioral change. So over to you, Veena.
We need more. I mean, I think we all understand, at least in the Indian context, that there is a looming water crisis. We already have a groundwater addiction problem and a pollution problem, but that's only going to get exacerbated with floods and droughts. And that is going to require some of the smartest brains in the country to work in this very complicated problem. And therefore, we need more water professionals. I think there are some very simple behavioral changes we can make to make women feel more included in the in the workplace, more heard, more acknowledged, and more cited. And one very simple thing is that when we are holding a meeting, traditionally, I used to see this, especially when I was younger. It happens less now, like I said, that I have gray hair and some seniority. But you would hear people going around a table. A woman would say something, and next a man would say something. Often the man would say exactly the same thing that the woman said, but he wouldn't even say it as well as the woman said it. And I've experienced this myself many
Me
times.
too, many
And
times.
yet there would be a male chairing the session who would repeat what the man said, but not acknowledge what the woman said.
Yes.
What you can do if you're a woman sitting in that room, even if you're junior, if you're a woman as chair, you should definitely do it. But even if you're a junior person, make sure that you said, as so and so women said, and then you build on what. So just like I said, you can cite each other better. You can also acknowledge each other's work in rooms
Yes.
better. If you're in a room and a women panelist has said something, make sure that you acknowledge what the women panelist said. As so and so person on the panel just said, that was an excellent point. Here's my question. If you're going around a table and you feel a woman has said something, speak up, and don't do it in a negative way. Don't fight it. Just
Yes.
say, as so and so woman said, or that was an excellent point, so and so woman said. Just do that one little thing. If every one of us women do it, even if we are only 30% in or 20% in the table, but we what the other people have said, over time that adds up. So we can do
Yes.
that much to raise visibility of women.
Yeah. Absolutely. We are looking for simple behavioral change because society does not change overnight. We need simple changes.
Yes.
And I so much agree with you that, and these things we all can do with no extra cost, with no extra effort. It's just that we have to be reminded of it, and it is a matter of conscience actually. It's not even something which we are doing strategic or, we have to oblige anybody. It is a matter of conscience which we have to carry in that room. I so much relate with it when you said that and faced it so many times. And what we can least do is not just acknowledge and appreciate. And at these conversations, we are also trying to amplify these points, because then it goes to more ears, and I think this will also create a situation that there is more room for listening to the woman by others. Because
can I say one more thing that we
go
can
ahead,
do
go ahead.
as women professionals as a group? A lot of the times, the kind of way that women's voices get kind of squashed is by minimizing or dismissing the work, right?
Yes.
And so what happens is often people would say, And I wanted to apologize to Ruchi because I, reacted when she said she meant, that you've combined natural and social sciences, and I reacted and said, "No, the reason is because oftentimes when you're sitting in a room, people say, "Oh, you are an activist," and I'm like, "No, I'm
I
not an
face it.
activist. I mean, I freaking have enough degrees. I've got enough citations. I don't want to be. So I don't want people to dismiss what we say by, and that's one way in which it happens. But people say it in many different ways, or they'll say." In a science gathering, oh, you're a social scientist. And then I'll be like, no, I'm not a social scientist. I am a transdisciplinary scholar. There are it's happened many times in jobs where people have said you're not good enough because you're a transdisciplinary scholar. But then the same people say how important interdisciplinarity and transdisciplinarity are. So
Yes.
I'd be like, no, this is an incredibly hard job. It is not trivial, and I've gotten here by being excellent in many things and not by somehow failing and then kind of weaseling my way here. So it's very important for women to practice some of these scripts so that you are holding your own, because the way your voice gets diminished is in many of these, it's always an aside of you're not good enough, or you're just this or you're just that. And sometimes it's a backhanded compliment. Somebody the other day, a very, very senior scientist said, you're very articulate. And he didn't mean it as a compliment.
Sarcastic.
It would be, I mean, no, he meant it as articulate. But what he meant to say, because in the context of the larger conversation, was you're not actually good, and because you speak so well, you're hiding, something which you're not being excellent enough. Of course, the reverse also happens. Women also get dismissed, saying your English is not good enough, and therefore you're dismissed. So it happens in both directions. So it's important to practice, and this is where you can do some of the types of forums, the women's leadership thing that I was talking about, where you learn how to get scripts and how to respond real time to some of these more complicated things, these types of things. Yeah.
Okay, that's quite interesting actually. And I still face it, by the way, what you just said, Veena, I still face it. The academic circle, they say it on my face, and I take it with a lot of dignity that I'm not enough I'm not enough academician, and I'm more activist, to the extent that day before someone called me, a very senior person called me and said, and asked me, what am I anti-national? So it goes to that extent of intimidation. And then I have very good bunch of friends from who are activists, and they say, "Oh, Mansi, you are not enough activist. You have too much of academic knack." And it is up to us, how do we take it? I mean, I take it in a very comfortable situation, and I feel like, okay, I am that damp water in the wall which nobody wants, and I'm still there. You cannot avoid it, and this is how I have been taking myself for last 20 years. I will be very honest on this platform to talk about it. That brings me to a closure to actually offer you an option. If you have any questions for me, this is the time for you to ask.
Well, maybe can you tell me what got you started on this path? I mean, you've obviously done this for 4 years, and it's been an incredible journey. And what inspired you to do this?
Oh, the very fact that we are invisible. Not that I personally want to be visible, but having this position as the national president, I thought it is an opportunity to do something for for the community, which is the women's community in this case. And what should I do? And I really broke my head for almost a year what can be done, especially not knowing many from the field, for the very reason I just mentioned to you, that a discarded child in the sector, and I come from architecture planning background. So I really put my head how to go about it. And personally, I am very fond of reading biographies. So I thought, how can I bring my specialization of working in water? And I was not even a gender studying person. I'm not a gender specialist or women studies specialist. I just want to learn about people's lives, because I always loved reading about great human beings. And honestly speaking, because today is 100th session, it is also a good space to admit that this has been a wonderful journey, especially learning from young emerging scholars the kind of anxiety they are carrying, from seasoned practitioners like you. And by the way, we had some wonderful men who have been guiding us all these years to hold this Water Resource Council, and they have actually handholded us, especially me in the leading position, how it should be done. And whenever I have given them shout, they have always supported this initiative. So when I look back to now 4 years of doing these sessions, honestly speaking, it is a rich repository which is available to everyone to hear and listen and even connect, for that matter. And I feel that it was a good decision to do it. There are a lot of flaws. We are not that technically sound, that articulative in this, and we may not have the very robust questions and all, but the idea was to bring all of us together and create a mass that we exist from invisibility to certain level of visibility. It may not change anything, but at least when someone will be 22 years old, that girl or a boy will have more acceptance for women in the water sector, and those people will have more names than I had at 22 years, when I just knew 4 women in the water sector. And I was never inclined in gender studies, to be honest, but the kind of career path I have had, with so much of backlashes from personal space to professional space, I feel very contented when I hear more women, not from the sadistic side, but more that life of women is complex, and that is why we know to handle complex situations. It's not about personal life alone, and also water as a subject. Our life itself is more complex, that is definitely true, but the subject is also complex. So I feel quite, to be honest, achieved in these 100 sessions now. But we still have 2 or 3 more sessions, 2 more sessions. And of course, we get Medha, and that I would like to answer one last thing from you. And what is the harm of being an activist? I wish I would be like Medha Patkar. So many a times people have said me on my face, and I have got a lot of rejections in invitations just because I'm considered activist. And I often ask, what is the harm in being activist? Because often I hear from scientists and academicians that they have a negative understanding of activism. So if activism can be like this, why not? And it is like this. I mean, and I feel proud to be activist, to be honest. If people see me as a, I don't see myself as an activist, but I feel proud.
I mean, I think that I'm going to say something a little,
Sure.
We live in a world where there's lots of terrible things happening, in the sense that if you just see what's been happening in, democracies around the world, it's not that the people in power are behaving really well. And
Yes.
if people in power do, across the world, I'm saying, and across
Yes,
history.
of course.
So if people in power have not behaved well, then, or are not behaving well, and we're seeing this and I don't mean necessarily in a narrow political sense. I mean, we see corruption in bureaucracy.
Yes.
You see the very, very big corporations kind of buying favor and currying favor. There's
Yes.
many different ways in which power kind of gets. So if the structures of power are not going to fix things, the only way you can fix it is by having external voices, and that's what activism is. Now, activists can be good and activists can be bad. I mean, sometimes they can be unnecessarily critical. I get irritated, but business people can be good and business people can be bad, and politicians can be good and politicians can be bad. So activists certainly have no unique claims over being either good or bad. And I would say that if you are an activist and you're transparent about what your motives are and what you stand for and so on, then you're one of the good activists. And, there's nothing to be ashamed about. There's plenty of really badly behaved business people and politicians and bureaucrats as well. So And
Yeah,
academics,
that's
you know.
and
So
activist, absolutely. As far as one is as transparent as water, that's how I wish to be or aspire to be. Be like water, as transparent, as flexible and flowing, and as much as you can touch the knowledge of the banks of like a river. That I think is good, and let it flow. And I think this conversation has really been flowing, and it's really nice that I could get you on the 100th session to enjoy this, and celebrate this session, especially for all the women who have really contributed to this 100 sessions making. And I would also like to thank all the team members who are working at the background, and most of them are women, not all. So thank you so much, Veena, for this enlightening interaction. I was feeling the conversation was flowing. I hope you enjoyed it and it was not too much of
I
stress
enjoyed
for
it. I
you.
had a blast. I will go back and look
Yes.
at some of your earlier episodes as well.
Now,
Congratulations on 100.
thank you so much. I was really looking forward to this conversation. But before I let you go, I would also like to announce once again that we will have Medha Patkar or Medha Tai to do the valedictory of this series when we close this series. I will miss not having this series, but at some point, everything has to close what has started. Veena, may you remain inspiration to all of us, and we are so grateful to have you here today and learn something more than what we see in the public domain. May you continue your water endeavors and keep us posted about it. And may you also like to join the Wiki Water Resource Council as advisor to us. And you may also look at our social media platform for regular updates. We will close this session on the third week of March after having 103 sessions, or we are actually calling Medha's session as 100 plus, no number to that session. So that way 102 sessions. Thank you so much, all of you. Please take care of yourself. Thanks to all the speakers so far. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.